The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist. But we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is LON STRICKLER. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, LON STRICKLER, coming to you within a cannon shot of the hallowed fields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining. So, quick note, Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation channel is made possible by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. I was just told we're up close to 5,000 subscribers now, so let's keep it going. Super chat donations are essential for us to continue offering our unique content. Your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So tonight, talking a little bit of Dogman, Upright Canine, the craziness of Pennsylvania. We got Butch WITKOWSKI joining me tonight. He's a member of the Phantoms of Monsters Fortean Research team. Butch and I have known each other for maybe too long. We've been kind of going through a lot of things over the years between the Todd C's case and Dogman and UFOs and everything in between. He's also the director of the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania as well. So, Butch, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure as always, my man.
How you doing?
Pretty much same as always. Days confused, you know.
Well,
when you get over 70, you get that way.
Well, knock on wood, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, this week's been busy for me. We did an RV on Saturday, and I've just been knocked out all week, off and on, sleeping here, sleeping there. But you get used to it, I guess. But anyway, we're here to talk about Dogman in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. We did have an update on a case. Oh God, when was it? That was I got the call back in April, actually. This was up in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, where a resident and her friends have had some sightings of strange encounters with canine cryptids in the area. Actually, these sightings, for the most part, were along Route 422, which is an area you're very familiar with, because it's not really that far from you.
Yeah, it's 2 blocks away.
Yeah. And people don't know where that is. It's about, I guess, about a half hour from Valley Forge, just an hour west of Philadelphia. And it's near Pottstown, Pennsylvania. But for whatever reason, there have been several sightings of these upright canines on the medium of 422 at night by witnesses, and I know at least 2 of them. But what do you make of that, Butch?
Well, recently, and I'm gonna go back about 6 months, that we had reports of rakes in state parks, which we have been set up with camera traps for like going on 3 months now. Mm-hmm. We've had some strange shadows walk between camera traps. Whatever it is definitely bipedal, but it's just so blurry, and that area at the state park is just so dense. It's like most of the state parks in the state. But the talking with the local police down there about past reports, they've had past reports of they just say creature, but when they describe it, it's basically along the lines of a rake. And then there's one where it was definitely, they described it as a large wolf bipedal, and that was shot at. I did get to talk to the gentleman that did the shooting. Now, he said, everybody that I've ever talked to about this always thinks like this shot was like out my back door into my backyard. He says, no, it was actually across the cornfield. And he said, did I hit it? I have no idea. All I know is, he said, after I pulled the trigger and the shot went off, it went gone. It was just gone. Now, he had one other incident that he wanted to talk about, but he said, I don't even know if it's worth talking about. And of course, when you know me, I'm like, yeah, talk about it. Where he said, you have my back porch. He said, which you can see, he said, isn't very big. He said, but the one alongside the house is. So he said, I usually walk my dog back and forth on that porch. And he said, that porch leads to another field. So he said, when you look over at the other field, he said, and I'm just going to say, I can swear that what I saw is what I saw. What I saw, I don't know what I saw, but here's what I saw. I went, okay. And he said, it was very tall. He said, 8-10 foot, easy, no problem. He said, I'm 6'4", and he said, it towered over me. And he said, I know that because there's a gate there. And I put that gate up, and I know how tall the gate is. And it had to put its head down to get under the gate. And I said, well, if it had to put its head down, it wasn't something that wasn't there. I mean, it had to put its head down, so if it would have walked forward, it would have hit himself in the head. And he said, yeah. But he said, I thought about going in and grabbing a gun. He said, but there was 5 steps, which were very large, and it jumped over a small drainage ditch there, which is about 4 foot wide, and into the trees. He said, and that's the last he saw of it. So when I asked him when that took place, he kind of hee-hawed around about a little bit, and then he said, well, he said, it actually took place after I shot at the other one. And I said, oh, okay, so you either shot at another one or it's the same one. He said, well, yeah, that's kind of what I figured too. He said he did talk to the game rangers about it. He talked to the park rangers about it. They took the report. They were nice enough to share it, and the story didn't change at all. So I got his permission to put 2 camera traps up at his place. One goes out the back door where he has seen both visitations. One hits the field, and the other one hits from the side porch out to an open field. Now, he doesn't grow anything. It was a farm. He's retired. He said he doesn't farm anymore, so he just cuts grass. So it's a nice grassy open field. And I said, if you wouldn't mind, if you look on the side of those cameras, and I showed him, I said, if you push this button, it'll show you how many pictures were taken. These will only take a picture when somebody walks within 100 yards. I said, do you think it was within 100 yards, or do I have to move them up further? He said, no. He said, 25, 30 yards, maybe. I said, okay. So that one. And then there's another one that I've been working on. Now, that's up in Susquehanna County. And I'm getting it so piecemeal, it's making me crazy. I'm getting a little of this and a little of that, and remember this, and then I have to get a hold of my buddy to find out what he remembers seeing it. Took place about 5 years ago. And these guys are in their early 20s and up goofing around by the mines with motorcycles, dirt bikes. And they'd stop, take a break, drink a beer. Of course, they had beer. And he said, they were looking at one of the old mines, which is pretty much all closed up, except on the one side where the cars unloaded. He said you could see there's an opening. He said it's about 4 foot wide, maybe 6-7 foot tall. He said, and that was actually went into an office, which is not there anymore. And that's where the guys went in to get paid or clock in or whatever. And he said, standing in the doorway, he said, I've looked at your website. I've seen that picture of your bipedal canine. He said, that was it. He said, no doubt about it, no question. He said, I'll never go back there again. I said, well, how about if I come up and go with you? He says, no, I ain't going anywhere. I'm not going back there. Whether you or anybody else comes, there's something in that cave or in that mine. And he says, I don't want any parts of it. And I said, okay. So I did coerce, snookered, begged, pleaded for one of my guys to go up there and take pictures of it, of the entrance. Now, he said, it's a big parking lot before that. So he said, there's no place to put a camera. He said, there's a fence there. The fence is wide open. If anybody sees that camera, it's going to be gone in a second. So he's going to go by and do a little nosing around. He's not afraid of the mines. His dad was a miner for years. So he's going to look around. I said, well, if you're looking around, look for footprints. Look for anything that shouldn't be there. That's what you want to look for. So he said, anything else? I said, when you're done, I said, I told you about the brown flour, correct? He said, yeah, I remember that. I said, okay. I said, get yourself 5 pounds of brown flour, rye flour, brown flour. And I said, as you leave, sprinkle that in the area that you can stick your head in that door and see if anybody's been, or anything has been witching around in there. I said, there'll be a print. I says, is it dry? He said, yeah, it's dry. There's no wet in there. I said, okay. So we're going to try that, see how that works out. But I'm not real happy about putting the camera up there because he said, you know, it's going to be on a fence and you're going to see it as you come up the drive. And he said, you know, somebody's going to steal it.
Sure.
So I said, all right. So we'll try it that way. And then there's one other place we want to try where we've had a couple reports, but they go back a couple of years, but they're still pretty much wide open. I mean, I did look into them years ago, but it's just about when we started with Clearfield, when we got the first reports. And up above Harrisburg, where the Harrisburg would be closer to, it might be Lycoming County, but there's where the old trains used to run from Philadelphia to coal trains used to run from Philadelphia out to Ohio and back again. So there were some coal, some boxes, but they closed the one turnaround house. Now I've been there. I mean, a little bit of work. We have a nice little house. I mean, it's pretty big, but we found scat in the basement, and I had it tested, and it was sold and dried out. You know, there wasn't anything they could do with it other than say, well, it's not a deer. You know, it's nothing like that. He said it's not human. So he said it could be anything. It could be a bear. But it's boarded up, which cracks me up because everything's boarded up solid except the back door. It's wide open. Turn the knob and open the door and walk in. And so it's pretty neat that now we're starting to get more information, and people aren't. In the very beginning, they seemed like they were very afraid to even talk about it. You know, they just didn't want to talk about it. And I still have a lot of people that you know, they say, well, you know, it's you know, you're looking at probably some indigenous thing or something like that. Which brings up, well, I'm thinking of it because I wanted to talk to you last time about it. I forgot. I was back at the farm. And old guy still in good shape. Still hears all kind of garbage going around the pond out there. And I told him, I said, oh, well, I apologize for not getting back. I said, but I had a heart issue, so I kind of got stuck here at the house. But while we're standing here talking, I'm right where we were standing, right next to where the truck was parked. I'm looking across, and there's the lights again. The blue light and the red light across the field. And I'm going like, this is nuts. He says, I don't mean to be ugly, he says, but they're only there when you're here. I said, what? He says, I could sit here for days looking across that field. Matter of fact, that front window looks right at that field. He said, I never see anything. He said, you show up, and the lights show up. I said, I kind of tried to play it off. He said, well, it's my alter ego, you know. And he just like laughed. And I said, I asked him if I could set a camera up with him. And he said, you can do anything you want here. He said, I don't care. Now the barn is done. The chicken barn is done. I did a scan of that, infrared and thermal, nothing. The field is all plowed straight. That big dirt mound that was there is moved. That's gone. And but he still hears noises coming out of the pond. Something happened at the new chicken barn, which he said nobody wants to talk about it. He said, but something happened. I said, you know, like somebody get hurt or something like that. He said, no, something happened. And I said, well, you know, who's the owner? And he told me who the owner was. He says, third farm up the road. So I did stop, but there was nobody there. I thought, okay, so I'm going to try and hit it again, see if I can talk to the guy that owns that chicken barn and see what actually happened. I mean, did they see something? Did something move on its own, or something appear or disappear or something like that? But it's crazy. Some of the stuff that's coming up now is just crazy. I mean, and these invisible, the visible and invisible soldiers, like that's weird. Now, I like I said, I've seen that stuff in Gettysburg, photographs, video, but never up in that area. Never. I did a background search. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you know, that was near Dover Air Force Base, and for those unfamiliar, since Vietnam, the military dead would be brought into Dover for autopsies and for distribution to wherever. So the fact that some apparitions were showing up in that area doesn't really surprise me. Though, you know, we don't hear much about that. You know, there have been thousands and thousands of bodies that have come through there over the years. So who knows? Maybe that's what's being seen up there.
Well, another thing was the 5 walking up the road. And I said, how long from the first sighting to the second group, from the single guy to the second group? And he said 10 minutes maybe. But the common denominator, the only common denominator in the whole thing was, besides uniforms, was the fact that they came out of the fog. They walked out of the fog. Now, I'm not a paranormal guy, you know that, but I don't know what fog has to play in these things. I know that cemeteries, old coroners, old funeral homes, old hospitals have a lot of that stuff. But I told him to keep his eye out, and he's going to take his camera to work, a video cam.
Well, that'd be good. I mean, it'd be nice to see if it shows back up. If it's just not residual or repeating. But, you know, if it's something different that comes up every once in a while, that'd be interesting. When
he started to describe it to me, he says, now, you may think I'm goofy. Now, he was not in Vietnam. He was not in that era.
Right.
I think he was National Guard, PA National Guard, I think, Iraq or one of those places. But anyway, and he said, I recognized the uniform right away. He said, all green, the helmet, the M16 with a 15-round clip. I mean, they don't even make 15-round clips.
Yeah, that's Army infantry.
That's, he said, the canteen, the bayonet. He said, I could see the rucksack hanging off the back of his, off the side of his belt. I'm like, Jesus. He said, the boots, the nylon, black, leather, everything. He said, it was right on the money. The first aid pack on the front of the belt. He said, I said, you saw all that? He said, I watched this guy walk up to me from 25, 30 feet away.
Yeah, that's unusual.
And he said, at first he thought it was one of the guys, because they do have weapons. They're, you know, it's a military installation where they're at. And he said he just thought it was one of the guys coming in to check in, because they do carry an M4 rifle and a handgun. But he said it was like looking back in history. And then shortly after that, these 5 walk out of the fog, and he says they were walking in a straight line, almost like they weren't marching, but it's almost like they were marching. They were in a straight line, heading up the road, and he said, and then they just, same as the first guy, just went away.
Now, you had talked earlier about the farm that's up there in northern Lancaster County, up there above Adamstown. Yeah, well, of course, we've been out there. I've been out there. Matt's been out there, and actually, if you read the book, my book, Alien Disclosure, Experiences Exposed Reality, there's a chapter in there about that. But anyway, yeah, a strange place. We went up there, what was that, 2018, February 2018?
Yeah, 18.
They had been working in the area, moving dirt around. They were constructing a long chicken house. God, the place looked like it was probably about 100 yards or more long. It was a huge thing, and there were apparitions and glimmerman type beings being seen there. And when I was up there, you and Matt were looking at the infrared, and they were showing up on that, but they were showing up as colds actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was weird. So I had to walk out there and see what's going on, and I just got the sense that this was some type of sentry thing, at indigenous sentry placement, possibly. I don't think it was a graveyard or anything like that, but I do think, and from what I've read, I do think it might have been a cremation site for Susquehanna, possibly.
Yeah, well, they burned all their.
They cremated everything. So, and then of course with that pond, and you said your witness, the guy who lives there, has heard it as well later on. I mean, I told you that night. I mean, when I'm standing here looking at this building, and on my right side is the pond, I start hearing drumming and chanting and such, and it's kind of hard not to notice that when that's going on. So. Yeah, maybe that's what was going on. Like I said, it's all written out in the book. We had actually, Delise did a RV on that place and addressed some of the UFO activity in the valley as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about the lights, and we saw the lights, and didn't know where the hell they were coming from. Though I guess it was maybe a half a mile across the valley there.
Yeah, and then there's a road there, and I was up and down that road daylight. I was up and down that road at night, and there's nothing there. There's no, like some of these townships have their pumps out,
Mm-hmm.
And they flash lights, but there's nothing like that. There's no electrical boxes. Matter of fact, there's no power poles around there. Now, off to the left of the lights, looking at the lights from the farm, there's a power line going up through, but there's nothing there. I mean, they start up on almost top of the hill. They don't start at the bottom and go up. They start probably about halfway up, because there's a flat up there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't drive up there, but there's a flat, and that's where they start. So I imagine there's an access road for the power company. But when he said that, those lights are only here when you're here.
Well, it's a high energy area because there's a lot of springs in there. That's the one thing when I started looking on the topography map, and when I started looking at the valley there, and this valley extends between, I guess, maybe the Lebanon County border down into Adamstown. So that's
go all the way to Lebanon County.
Yeah. And I mean, when you get a lot of natural water sources in one area, you're going to get a lot of activity. And I imagine the indigenous knew that. And
from Lancaster, from their historical society, I mean, from where you get on the road there, all the way beyond Lebanon, actually, about 10, 15 miles, that was all Indian territory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were no white people down there, no farms or anything like that. That was just.
You're right. That was wilderness, basically. I mean, up until maybe the 1750s, maybe that was all wilderness. And I mean, even though that was further east from the Susquehanna, but it was still wilderness. So.
And there were, I believe, when I read that stuff at the historical society, there were like 3 tribes. Susquehanna, of course, were the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were a couple smaller tribes, and one was actually an offshoot of Mohawk. They were always at war with each other.
Right.
I mean, that was a daily, but get up in the morning, have your Wheaties, grab your tomahawk and your bow and arrow, go kill somebody, and they were great for capturing. They loved capturing, and so they used according to the historical stuff. They'd capture these other tribes, and they'd work them pretty much to death, and then turn them over to somebody else, and then they, get about their skinning and burning and carrying on.
In Pennsylvania especially, it's pretty hard to distinguish. When you go into an investigation, it's hard to distinguish which tribe was there at the time things going on because, at least where we're at here in South Central Pennsylvania, I mean, you had the Susquehannock, but they got pushed back into Delaware. Then you had the Shawnee and the Lenape, and which were the Delaware, and also we had Powhatan, who actually moved up there later on from down Virginia. So there's been a lot of tribes in Pennsylvania. Of course, north of there, you got all the Iroquois tribes that are just everywhere. So yeah, they were warring a lot. They weren't just fighting settlers; they were fighting each other. Up in
Alberta's PA, which
right.
they claim that to be. There's a foundry there, and the foundry made cannonballs for the Civil War and some military arms parts. And actually, before they built that foundry, that was a Lenape reservation, and they were warring with somebody. I forget who it was anymore, but another tribe, and they pretty much wiped each other out. And the burial mounds, if you walk from the foundry, which is turned into a museum now, but when you walk through the foundry and across the field, and it just kind of inclines up just a slight bit, and then it flattens out, you can see the mounds, the burial mounds. They're just like one after another. You could walk. You can't walk between them. That's how close they are. And they pretty much they fought to the last man, and they just wiped each other out. Period.
Yeah, those burial mounds. I mean, I would believe that would probably be Delaware, either Delaware or Powhatan came in there later because, I mean, I doubt. I know what Susquehannock and then Shawnee.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Shawnee either. But anyway, yeah. So, folks, if you got any questions, people in the chat, go ahead and put it in caps and put it up there, and then Bill and Vincent will put it up here for us to answer. But we are talking specifically about Dogman and upright canines in Pennsylvania. Now, of course, we had James West there with us 2 weeks ago in Greene County, which was quite interesting. He had the attacks. Butch, do you use wireless mobile carrier trail cams?
Yes, we have 4.
There you go. So wonder we haven't had any ripped off. I mean, it is.
I'm amazed because at the one time down at the state game lands there, I had 6. I had 6 set up. So, and nobody messed with them, but they have 24/7 police there. So
yeah. Well, what's that? French Creek?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's near you.
That's a bizarre place.
That's Bucks County, right? Or is that?
No, that would be Montgomery.
Montgomery County. Okay.
Well, half of it's in Berks and half's in Montgomery, and a little bit of it's in Chester.
So you got, go ahead and flash it up here, folks. Let us know what you got, what you want to find out about these investigations we've been doing for, I don't know, it's been 2017 maybe. We started doing a lot. Well, it was before that.
Yeah.
I guess by the time we were working on the, when I met Butch, we hooked up on the Todd Seas thing, and that's what we were working on together. And then I started telling Butch about upright canines and Dogman, and got him all worked into all the cryptid stuff, and that's where we are now. Does Butch follow any of the UK Dogman cryptid reports?
Yes, I do. There's quite a few of them, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Just a bunch just showed up in Scotland.
Yeah, there's always been a cryptid canine phenomena. Canic Chase is the area where I think of mostly because the big black hounds and all that people see. I don't know if they're apparitions or what they are or something else, but they still show up once in a while. So there's a lot of those reports up there. how much input do Native Americans have in research on cryptids and paranormal research?
Lots.
Yeah. I think here in Pennsylvania it is pretty prominent. Now, of course, you never know what you're going to run into, just like what we've been doing out in Chicago. We really didn't have much idea of what was actually going on, but of course, with all the revelations recently, and some of the references to actual Kachinas from out of the Zuni Hopi Indian tribes, and maybe a connection to what's going on in Illinois and Chicago around that area. There happens to be a three tribal council in that area as well. So, that's something we're looking into. But of course, in Pennsylvania, it's important.
Isn't it funny how much the Hopi have played into the upright canines?
Yeah.
And all the other Indian stuff. I mean,
but that's what we're working on. I mean, I've been able to get some sources over the years, and of course, we're always working on other sources. But there is a connection. Now, of course, people are saying, they're skinwalkers. Well, this has nothing to do with black magic or anything like that. This is the actual traditional phenomena that folks had seen over the years that knew they weren't skinwalkers, and what kind of connection there is naturally to what people are seeing now. So, hopefully we're going to get some more information. Center County activity. Oh, there's always something going on in Center County, isn't it, Butch?
You got that right.
Yeah.
But it's funny when you look at the bipedal map, our research area. They seem to cluster in north central, but then you have a bunch down here, and you have a bunch over here, and you have some scattered over here.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these reports go back to the mid 1700s.
Oh yeah.
And
Center County's been busy. I mean, we had I think we probably had at least 4 reports in Center County. Mm-hmm. Rothrock, some of the other state game lands around there. Had one not too far out of State College.
We had the one along 22 there.
Yeah.
With what's his face, the musician.
Yeah.
And his buddy.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah.
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 So
that was Blair County, but no, it's all in that one area.
Yeah. But there's so many historical reports, and the one that always struck me, I mean, the one that made me stick with this, because at first I thought, I better go back to UFOs. This is out of my realm. But when I found that newspaper report up in Erie, the Erie, whatever the hell it was, Erie Gazette or something, and it was a report of a tall canine, wolf-like being, very tall, that was tearing up the guy's sheep, and he waited for him, laid into him and took a shot at him. And but it was his description to the constable when he went back to town that was published. If I take that description and pick up our descriptions that we've been getting, they're identical.
Yeah.
Identical. Face, head, body, mass, everything. Height, color. So they've been around a long time.
Are dogmen migrating across the United States? Why so many reports now? You and I have talked about that before. In Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, down to Southwest Virginia, they may migrate. The ridges in the Appalachians, which are pretty prominent ridges. There's a byway for them to get through there without really causing much any sightings or anything. Do they migrate? I don't know. What do you think, Butch? You think they migrate?
Well, yeah, because when you get further down south, depending on the time of year, is like, of course, the church lady that was mauled and killed. I mean, till this day, and I follow that religiously. I mean, I check on that every couple days through the sheriff's department down there. They still don't know what tore her up.
Oh, that was down in North Carolina.
Yeah, no dogs, no bear, no mountain lion, nothing. All the DNA that was collected off of her at the autopsy matches nothing. Nothing. No wolf, they don't know what it was.
Yeah, I mean, when Vincent asked about other parts of the country, I don't know. I don't really think they do. The whole, just like the Beast of Bray Road down south central Wisconsin. I the more I see that, the more people I talk to, and there was a sighting there long ago. Some of the footage that's been gathered over the years, Lee Hemphel's farm in particular. There's a lot of supernatural stuff going on there. I mean, I'm seeing stuff on these films that he's presenting that would, they lay a dead deer out in the road just waiting for something to come, and this thing just will manifest out of a puff of smoke. And weird stuff like that. And they just suddenly show up at the end of the field, and they get a picture of something out there, a form, and it just disappears. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that whole thing out there. It's ingrained in the area with the Beast of Bray Road and other phenomena out there. It's known for these upright sightings. Of course, I have gotten sightings in that area, that southern Wisconsin area, for years. Also up into a little further north as well. So who knows?
And I would think with all the reports that we had in Pennsylvania, there'd be more reports like in Ohio and West Virginia, and there aren't.
Now, you're right. We don't get many down there. I don't know why, but I don't know. People just aren't out there. They're just hiding better, or what the deal is. I mean,
Greene County, there have been a few in Greene County over the years.
Well,
and, you can spit in Ohio or West Virginia from Greene County.
Well, yeah, it's right there. Yeah. I know there was a question about Cumberland County out between Mechanicsburg and Carlisle. There were a series of sightings in Cumberland County. And actually it came to me from it said between Carlisle and Mechanicsburg, the bipedal was camping there and heard zero noises one night. Yeah, well, Linda Godfrey had gotten a report in that area, and she was looking into it. And of course, this was in Pennsylvania. She's out in Wisconsin, but I guess she was a bit coy about it. Didn't tell me a whole lot, but I did talk to some people out there, and they said there have been some sightings in Cumberland County, which doesn't surprise me.
No.
Cumberland County encompasses a lot of forested area, especially just like Micho and Micho State Forest and head south. So there's a lot going on out there. So,
and a lot of people don't realize how big an area we're talking about.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that whole central Pennsylvania area where we're talking about is a vast majority of the forested area in the state, and of course you've got a lot of mountain areas and valleys and deep valleys, deep ravines, places people very rarely go into.
Oh yeah,
and it's west of the Appalachian Trail, so even the Appalachian Trail doesn't even go into those mountains there. It kind of veers west up towards Poconos and up. But you try to figure out what's going on here. But the one thing in Pennsylvania you do know, so that the Bigfoot and the upright canines stay away from each other. We don't get any reports of any type of, conflicts between these two, even though they're known for being in both areas. Micho State Forest is a perfect example. We've had Bigfoot sightings in there for years.
Oh yeah.
The whole way up into Gettysburg and along Route 30, and but we do get upright canine sightings as well, and so I don't know. I guess they're just able to avoid each other. So what else we got here? Anybody got another question? Do you see additional balls of light using infrared VE camera versus naked eye? I do at site. I'm investigating in Genesee, Pennsylvania, Potter County. I don't know, Butch. What you say?
Infrared, yeah. Thermal, yes. We did try something last summer where we used a regular 35 millimeter film camera, and we put a red filter on it, and used that type of film, and it was interesting, but it's very hard to make out. The pictures turn out to be fuzzy around the edges. You don't get a real good definition. But thermal imaging and infrared, I mean, we have about half a dozen of those types of units, and plus we have the cameras also. But
now I got a question. I got a personal question, not from me, from Jennifer. And Jennifer asked me to ask you, what do you think about these upright canines, these dog men? Are there dog women? Are there actual any gender differences or sightings where people notice any difference between these things?
No, never had any descriptions.
That's what I told her.
Female wise, although in Bigfoot there have been, but not in the bipedal. No, not at all.
Yeah, that was a pretty good question, I thought, because people have gotten pretty close to these things. You don't hear anything about genitalia, you don't hear anything about breast, you don't hear anything about anything as far as gender. So maybe these things are, I don't know. Maybe they're just some type of supernatural being that is somehow
coming down to that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it would kind of make you think like that, but the fact that we haven't had any sightings like that, and I don't know why I never really thought much about that, but I don't know. It's just another question that's unable to really answer, but I'm quite sure somebody's going to come back to us and say, oh, well, we had this and that. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe somebody will see something. Question, have many pups been found? I don't know of any.
No.
Any young.
No.
That's another thing.
Nothing even resembles,
No.
and they're all described the same way.
Juveniles, they're all huge beings. They seem to all be full size. And that tends to make me think that they're supernatural beings. So who knows?
Yeah.
Now, of course, we'll get an argument from people who are aficionados of the Dogman or people who say that's all they do, and they'll come up with some kind of explanation. But no, I haven't seen anything.
No.
What is your opinion on Dogman and Sasquatch cohabitation? Well, they live in the same areas. I mean, we do know that. And that was from James West, who told us that he has Bigfoot out there, that he thinks there's Bigfoot out there where he had his Dogman encounter. And I believe that. I mean, I said like Misha definitely got both of them in there. There's other parts of the state as well, and even outside the state where these things cohabitate. I guess it's just a matter, are they both indigenous, or are they both I'll say it, extraterrestrial possibly. Are they interdimensional? Who knows? We get a lot of strange reports regarding Bigfoot as well. It just makes you think what the deal is. So I know there's something out there. So
definitely something out there.
I went to college in Clarion, Pennsylvania. Any reports out there? You'd have to ask Paul Belugas about it. That's what I think he went to college at. I don't know if Paul's ever heard of anything out there. I mean, he's never mentioned it to me. I don't know.
No, I haven't seen any.
Yeah. I don't. That would be up towards, I guess, close up towards Allegheny, and of course we've had sightings in Allegheny. But I don't know. Okay, Butch, I'll send you our den photos, and there are pups. Okay, well, do that. Send it to
Thank
us.
you, Brian.
We'll look at them. And let's see. Any other questions? Come on, folks. You guys, for another 15 minutes. You got questions? Let us know. We're here to answer. Are they attracted to warm climates, Mexico, Central, South America? Well, I don't know. I have no
Well,
idea. They may be.
mostly Mexico, Central, and South America. They talk about werewolves.
Yeah.
You know, the changeover. Where you're talking to the guy you owe him $5, and he says you don't pay him. He turns into a werewolf and rips your head off.
Sure.
But that has always been in that area, Mexico and Central and South America. And probably a lot in the same area down there where they have the disappearing witches.
Yeah, flying witches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, down in Mexico they have a lot of natural canine species. They have the Mexican wolf and a few other things. I don't know if they could be mistaken for these type of upright canines or dogman or whatever, but I know they're out there. So are either one of you familiar with Victor, the alleged government agent that worked with the government breeding program? If so, what's your opinions? Appreciate all your time, guys. I'm not familiar with that name. I've heard a lot of names over the years, but that's a new one.
Yeah, me neither.
That's just somebody that's involved with something that we know about. These breeding programs. Oh God, I lived down around Baltimore for a long time, and I heard a lot of different stuff. Down there where Edgewood is, and down there where Aberdeen proving grounds are, and there's been talk about Bigfoot breeding in there for years. Of course, when I had that encounter back in '81, I was thinking, well, maybe something escaped from somewhere out there, because they were on this thing right away. So, are there breeding? Is there breeding activity? Possibly. It wouldn't surprise me. There's been a lot of thoughts that this may actually be what's going on, but I don't know. It's hard to prove that. If I hit on something one day, then I start getting a knock on the door, then I know I struck a nerve. So, and I haven't had anybody knocking on the door about that, not yet, anyway. So, what experiences has Butch personally had with dogmen? Personally,
none.
Nope, you're gonna keep it that way too, aren't you?
Yeah, as long as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, they scare the hell out of me. I know. I mean,
one guy said, "Do you go armed when you go looking for these things?" I looked at him like, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
You kidding me?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't want to run into one of those things. They scare the crap out of me. I'm new to Dogman. This is from Wild Trees. Are there any good photos of them?
Artwork, yes. Photos,
yeah, no. There's a lot of good artwork out there, but quite frankly, I don't know. I'd say the best picture is the 7 Shoots picture up, the photograph up there in Quebec. That's probably the best one, and I do believe that's a canid. And actually, looks like he's holding a little white dog or something. Maybe that's dinner. I have no idea, but no, that's probably the best photograph I've seen.
Yeah. Our drawing of him we had done strictly from how I did it was I just took the description from 7 different reports and turned them over to a gentleman who was an artist for the FBI. Mm-hmm. And I said, just draw what they're saying they see. And that's what we stuck with. So it is what it is.
Well, that's what I did with Sykesville with the Bigfoot.
Yeah, same thing.
Monster. I took all that imagery and not imagery, but what they described, sketches and such. Used a base from what this was a forensic artist retired down in Florida, and he took a base photograph because from my description I said it looked like a Neanderthal. So he took what some would say would be the head of a Neanderthal, anthropological being, and then went with that, and then took the other, and we had a lot of them. I had a lot of descriptions, and that's when he ended up with what he ended up with. So, you know, and quite frankly, what I saw looked very much like that picture I've shown over the years. So, yeah. But as far as Dogman upright canine, I don't know. I haven't really seen anything that has convinced me either way, other than what I saw at the 7 Shoots, and that was a monstrous looking thing anyway. So, are there a decrease in wolves, coyote numbers in areas where Dogman are seen?
Yeah. Coy wolves.
Yeah, coy wolves.
Tons of them. They're all over the state.
Yeah, they have increased, Pennsylvania in particular, but those actually were hybrids of wolves and coyotes. Mm-hmm. It mostly started up into southern Ontario, up around Toronto. My God, you go up Toronto out into the parks and stuff outside the city, there are coy wolves everywhere,
and they're nothing to mess with.
No, they do. They're aggressive.
They have that wolf mentality.
Yep.
So you might be staring one down in the front, and there's 15 in the back.
They kind of look like a coyote with long legs and type, like a thick wolf body and tail, but they got the coyote head. They're kind of weird looking, but no, they're aggressive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're aggressive. They really are, and they really do protect their young too. And I've talked to several Canadians, and they tell me the same thing. They don't even like fooling with them. But I do believe that they've come down here from there. Now, are there your breeding populations here in Pennsylvania and New York? I don't know. I know you've seen them.
Yeah.
So
up in Clearfield.
Yeah.
I mean, up there. The park ranger even came out and warned us when we got there.
Yeah.
That he said, and he whipped out his phone. He showed me a picture of 10. He showed me a picture of 15.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. And he said they're aggressive. If you're armed, he said stay armed. Won't bother you during the daytime, but at nighttime, he said they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Has Butch read about the Flixton werewolf in Yorkshire?
No, but if you send it to me, I will.
I've actually who did a report on that? Yeah, but it was a cryptid investigator in Great Britain who's actually looked into that. But I've heard of that. Yeah, I think maybe I forget who it was, but I had read about it. But it's an interesting group of sightings out there. Apparently, this being just shows up. I mean, it's from what I understand, the sightings in Yorkshire are on those cliff areas near the beaches off the sea. Paul Sinclair, there it is. Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, because I had Paul on the show a couple times actually, years ago. Paul, yeah, that's who wrote about it, Paul. Yeah. So, any other questions? What about Johnstown area? What about the Johnstown area? I got a haunting down there I'm working on now. Well, over in Somerset, but it started in Johnstown. And with all the crap that's happened in Johnstown over the years, let alone the flood, and then with with Shanksville, with Flight 93, and all the other bad stuff that has happened around there with drugs and all the dysfunction and all it. It's like a powder keg, that area.
A lot of paranormal up there.
Oh yeah. As far as upright canines, I think the closest that we have had has been in Cambria County, up in what's the name of that town where we had a couple sightings at, Butch? Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, why don't you ask me something easy?
Yeah, Cambria County.
There are reports in that area.
Yeah, Cambria's got a lot of them.
But there's
in fact, we've had sightings of white canines as well. So I don't know if they were apparitions or something else. I think people are actually seeing these pale humanoids, And of course, we're getting those sightings. And Butch talked about that out there at French Creek, where they had the pale humanoids sightings reported. So, that's something we're working on. And that'll all be in the book when I finally get done with it, which I'm working on now. But let's see. Do you think these dogmen are being conjured? I wouldn't necessarily say conjured. I'd say maybe just like what we've been thinking about in Chicago, and more recently ultra terrestrial activity. Are these things actually also terrestrial? No, that's a good question to ask, because I think with some of the revelations we have gotten more recently, there could be a possibility that be true. So, but I don't know. If they'd be conjured, I wouldn't know what they'd be conjured for. I don't know who would be conjuring them, for what reason, as sentinels or guardians. I just haven't seen that. I mean, they seem to be pretty sporadic. So, my wife and I live in Shippensburg, in Michaud State Forest. I have seen blue-white orbs there. What are they? Just part of everything else that's associated with these cryptids. And all the other phenomena as well. We had a sighting up near Shippensburg not long ago of something. I don't know what the hell this was. It was huge. The guy saw it, said it looked like a damn cow, but it had a canine face to it, and very muscular, huge being. And he was a garbage man on his route up in Shippensburg, and he said he saw it in the field, and he didn't know what it was. But there's sightings up there. And as far as blue and white orbs, we get blue and white orb sightings associated with a lot of different phenomena, even Bigfoot.
There were also some reports of the flash of light in the woods. Bigfoot appears, flash of light, he disappears in that same area.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, we get a lot of that stuff. So, when people talk about phenomena being associated with other phenomena, well, that's what happens. I pretty well expect that when we get a sighting, that something else is going to show up with it. That's just the name of the game now. It just happens. There seems to be paranormal activity, spiritual side, or maybe extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial side, as related to cryptid sightings. It just seems to work out like that. So we got a time for another question. Are there any reports by the Amish? Can you speak about them? Well, yeah, I can. I had a report. Now, it wasn't upright canine, I don't think, but this was something that happened several years ago. The report that came to me from a milk delivery person, a guy who used to pick up the milk at one of these farms it's actually down in Strasburg, which is Lancaster County. And this old Amish farmer and his son saw this thing out in the field, and he called it a wild man. Had actually had overalls on, and it had hair and everything else. He wasn't, I never talked to the guy, but this milkman did. He went back and questioned a bit. Then he stopped talking about it. But what his account was, they saw this thing coming in from the field. They ran in the house, just sitting in the house watching this thing, just wandering around the farm. But he described it as a large, hairy wild man that had coveralls on. And when the old man went out there to confront this thing, he thought it was calm enough that he could go talk to it or whatever. He said when he came out and noticed him coming out, he started walking towards the barn. And when it got so close to the barn, it just suddenly disappeared, just vanished. So I don't know what I'm quite sure that that Amishman didn't have much to say at the meeting the next Saturday, but he was. That was a pretty interesting report. Okay, folks. Well, I tell you what, I want to thank you for the questions. They were excellent questions, and of course, Butch, you're welcome anytime, and. God knows what we run into. So sometimes we may get something important that we might have to talk about and have to have you come on. But again, thanks for taking your time, come with me tonight, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, now if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. I want to again thank Butch Witkowski for joining me this evening, and thanks to each and all of you who for watching and chatting. And if you made a super chat donation, it's truly appreciated. So your support is what makes this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. Now, next week, we'll be discussing Indrid Cold with Tanya Derenberger, the author of Beyond Lanillos, our 50 years with Indrid Cold. Now, Tanya was supposed to have been on a couple months ago, but there was a medical issue, so she's been kind enough to reschedule with us again. So that should be an interesting conversation. I've read the book, and it's a strange story. I mean, people that are familiar with The Grinning Man or Indrid Cold and some of the stuff that her father, Woody Derenberger, discussed and proclaimed over the years, it was an interesting story. So, yeah, join us for that. It'll be quite interesting. So until next week, stay healthy. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend.